wonder whether the old man's got stuck here. I think he has. At least he's trying to get himself out of the pickle. So what he was aiming to do was move this mud over behind him, where the hedge line, where you can't see it. But to all intents and purposes, I think he's now stuck.
That's right, folks, we're building a shed. We don't have a machinery store, workshop space, or anywhere to store seed or animal feed. Putting a shed up allows us to do those things. We'll also terminate the farm power and water supply into that shed when they become available. Permitted development rights allow you to build something much larger, and we've tried to design a shed that will meet our needs without being overly intrusive. We've chosen a location that is as least impactful to those around us as we could make it, tucking it just below the hedge line and with close proximity to the road to reduce the need for hardcore and tracks. Our first job is to clear the topsoil, excavate and lay hardcore, and get some pits dug for the shed steelwork to connect to. We'll take the hardcore from the tree line and improve an existing track in order to get the hardcore from that tree line to the shed location. Let's get cracking. I'm lucky to have the old man on hand to learn from, as he's a very capable swing shovel operator. And nigh on 50 years after he first learned how to do it, he still loves sitting in one.
just saying it's a nice day for it. I was faffing about on the phone.
Very careful, you don't get too confident and come into the road.
Introducing Denzel the dumper. Now Denzel belongs to another local farmer, and Denzel's had a long life, as you can probably tell. Many quirks. I'll introduce you to some of them. My favourite, and perhaps the most challenging, is that Denzel's steering wheel is no longer attached to many things. It's best to be very careful with that. Denzel has a brake here, which has almost no grip whatsoever, so that's another one to watch for. We need to jump start Denzel on cold mornings, and Denzel's canopy won't come up and go back down in the right angle, so you need two people to manhandle his cover off and manhandle it back on again, which in the cold is always an excitingly positive task for us all. He has tyres that really we ought to inflate a little bit more, that have many cracks and gaps. I'm just waiting for one to explode when I go around the corner, or carrying a particularly full load of something or other. And probably the thing I dislike most is that he lacks any kind of canopy, so the second it starts raining, when you're trundling along at next to no speed at all, you get very wet very quickly. So here's Denzel. We did have another another dumper, again borrowed from a local farmer. That one had much narrower wheels, a much smaller load capacity, and we just didn't need it, so that one's gone back. That one did have a canopy though, to its credit. So there's Denzel.
Over the course of the 3 days it took us to get rid of the rubbish and fly tipping, we actually managed to find something worth salvaging. We found a rusted trailer chassis which had to go to scrap, but its two wheels and axles were sound enough for us to cut them off and recover them, and we're going to use those to allow us to move the shipping containers around. So all was not in vain, but I do have a newfound respect for farmers who've got to deal with fly tipping regularly.
I wonder whether the old man's got stuck here. I think he has. At least he's trying to get himself out of the pickle. So what he was aiming to do was move this mud over behind him, where the hedge line, where you can't see it. But to all intents and purposes, I think he's now stuck. Oh. Now he's desperately hoping in that cab, you can see him smiling, that he pulls himself out of this, because if he doesn't, he won't live it down. You can see it's pretty damp in the middle and he's just getting stuck. It's like a jelly there. Oh, he's now going to dig himself out before he gets himself into any more trouble. Now he's going to find this funny, and only if he can get himself out. If he can't get himself out, it's going to be pretty grisly pretty quickly. I mean, the fact that you can't see the tracks tells me he's pretty deep in. He looks like he's concentrating pretty hard now. We'll get a quote from the man, shall we? We'll get a quote. Let's see what he's got to say. Yeah. Your fans would like to know whether that was intentional or...
That was really fun.
How would you describe that?
Exciting. Just basically too wet.
I've described you as a more proficient swing shovel user, but maybe we ought to rethink
You got in there, you wouldn't have got out.
I wouldn't have got in there, would I?
No, you wouldn't.
No. I would ask you to clean it, but we haven't got any water.
It'll come all stuff.
It's fresh this morning. Just been line painting, so we're about to go and dig some holes for the shed, which is exciting. I'll kind of show you what we've been up to, and then hopefully do a bit of a time lapse so you can see the holes being dug. Whether or not they go in the right place remains to be seen. Patch of hardcore in front of you. It's dried up nicely, whether that's just because it's Baltic or because it's dry, I don't know yet. I suspect it might be because it's cold. But you'll see, or you might just be able to make out there's some red marks on the floor. Just been doing that this morning, so that's where the hole's going to get dug. You might be able to see and hear the old man in the background down the very end. Just sat in the warm digger, which you should know by now is where it's best suited. And then a bit of an update, I guess you can see red ones, blue, which was the original position. What I've tried to do is bring it back closer to the hedge line,
so that it doesn't just project quite so far out into the field space, to be as low impact as possible against the surrounding countryside. And what that means then is you get a bit more space just in front where we've done some hardcore already. You'll notice that some of the mud has been moved and is now hidden, or partially hidden behind the container. I'll give you a sense of just how much mud that actually is. So it's one of those obfuscation type situations rather than removal, but it's not been dry enough to move it all the way. I mean, medium term it'll just sit along the hedge line, just down there, and then probably through the summer we'll move it to different parts of the field that could do with it, you know, particularly stony patches or whatever. You might be able to see as well, it's not quite so sunny as it has been when it's been cold, but it is on the verge of snowing. I'm desperately hoping it doesn't do that. We shall see. Yeah, and then just on the ground here, you'll see the marks where the hole's going to go. Cement is booked for 2:30 tomorrow. Let's get cracking. Good afternoon, folks. We're just finishing up for the day. I can't feel my face. I've had to take my gloves off to do this as well. I can't feel my fingers now. But we've had a good day. So the old man, under my watchful supervision, dug 7 very, very smart looking holes, and then concrete comes at 2:30, I think, tomorrow afternoon. Good evening. Busy day today, but well, I mean, what do we start with? Let's start with Percy. So Percy is the old man's old tractor, and it is old, but it serves us well for odd jobs. For example, jump starting the dumper each morning when it's really cold, it comes in particularly handy for. But you might notice amongst all the old features of Percy that he now sports 2 different types of front tyre. We had a puncture this morning, so we had to go and replace the tyre, which is faff. And then the old man then hit something in the road with the underside of his car, and the sump came off. To tow that, or I've had to tow that to the garage, which I've just finished doing. So in between all of the things that are solving the old man's life challenges, we also managed to get some stuff done, which is quite cool. Some cement in some holes, and bolts in the cement, which is really exciting. So it's really nice to spend a day, get a lot done, not get covered in mud, and then be able to see what you've done at the end of the day. And bolts in holes means soon this won't just be a pile of stones and some concrete, but there'll be some steel going up. And then before I know it, there'll be a shed, and I can sit inside and put a kettle on and have a cup of tea. But small steps. So, give you a quick close-up of some bolts. You'll see in the time lapse that the guys that put the bolts in are putting the frame up, so it seems a little bit unfair to put the bolts in ourselves and then ask them to put the frame up for them to come in and find that the bolts are in the wrong place. Bolts just literally sit in the concrete, and there's one in this corner, that corner away over there, and that one. These 2 will hold a sliding door, and the bolts are fitted when the steel goes up, and the bolts for that one in the middle are also fitted when the steel goes up, so we don't need to do that one. In between time, I knew I'd have a little bit more concrete than I could use, and although I haven't shown you that yet, just in the container on the left hand side there's a diesel generator. Can't really run in a container just with the fumes, etc., and ultimately long term needs to sit just next to the shed. So I stuck a whole load of concrete in a hastily created timber shutter, which was exactly what was left in the lorry, conveniently. So once that's set, I'll take the shuttering off, I'll take the generator out of the container, stick it on the top there, and what will happen is the shed side will come here, and our solar solution will terminate just inside the shed in this corner, and we'll run the cable from the generator just behind the shed through that hole. And then while we were faffing about doing cement in holes, the old man, it's cold out, so he's been sat in the digger a lot today, bless him, just to warm up a little bit, and we've taken a little bit more soil off just at the front, and we've got a nice clean edge now, which is lovely. A bit more stones come up the hill from the quarry. Plenty more stone to do, but to be honest, I've spent so long on the dumper and the digger now that I'm really just putting that off. It has to happen, but not this evening. Bit of mud tidying, so it's gone further that way, which I'm pleased about. So yeah, even though it's been cold, it's been a good day. The only thing that we did find is that the runoff from the stone, in terms of heights, has meant that these 2 pits and the finished floor level have meant that I could have either brought the concrete right up above the hole here, or just have slightly longer steel stanchions in these 2, and that's what we've decided to do. So the steel for these 2 will be 200 mil longer, and therefore the shed will be the same height all the way along at the top. You won't see any of that anyway, because the finished floor level, if I bring you down here and I'll try and hold that level, the finished floor level is level with the corner of the first of the 2 shipping containers, and it's literally the foot where you see a bit of timber lying horizontally. The top of that foot is the finished floor level, so you won't see any of these posts anyway, bolts, and you won't see any of the difference in height once that's finished. And then tomorrow is borehole day. Running water, incredibly. Plenty of water lying about. And I know, having spent weeks trailing around in the mud, that there's plenty of water about, but none of it usable. So tomorrow, all going well, there'll be a drilling rig just down there, which is exciting. Putting in our borehole. And it'll sit for a while because we need to test the water, but drilling for water is one step towards having water. And as I finish cleaning up the site, it's quite nice to know that in a few weeks' time, not a very long time, there will be a dry structure here with power and water terminated into it, so I genuinely can make a cup of tea. Small things that make you happy, I guess. Yeah. Water next.